So I am very excited. Finally, I have a Horage Supersede hands-on to show you guys. This is a watch that I've been talking about here on my channel for quite some time. It's in 904L stainless steel. It's an integrated bracelet watch. It has a micro-rotor. It's also 200 meters of water resistance. Literally everything you can think of, every spec, they have put it into this watch. So, does it live up to my expectations? Let's flip the camera and take a look at the integrated bracelet micro-rotor Horage Supersede. So I'm very excited to show this watch here on my channel, finally hands-on. I actually did a video about this watch, a news video when it first came out, or the first renderings came out for this watch, because I was very excited. I think the initial price that they were offering this watch at was around $4,500. And I thought that was an excellent price. Now, it is a lot more expensive than when it first was released. However, we'll talk about if I still think it's worth that money. There are a few very important things to know about this watch. Number one, it's obviously an integrated bracelet sports watch. It does have 200 meters of water resistance, which is obviously very good for an integrated bracelet watch. It has a dive style bezel, and it has a micro-rotor movement. So this gets a very thin K2 movement, their GMT movement, and that GMT movement is a traveler's GMT. So essentially all that means is when you unwind the crown, and you do have a screwed-in crown and screwed-in case back, it pops into the first position. That is for winding the movement. You do have a power reserve right at the 12 o'clock. It's actually very discreet. It's almost a little hard to see, which I like. So it's there and you know how much power you have. However, it's not in your face. I like the design. I think that looks really good. A lot of Horage watches have power reserves, big dates. This doesn't get a big date, but it gets a large date. I mean, I won't call it a big date, but it definitely is larger than your typical date window, which also I think looks really good. So in the first position, as I mentioned, you could wind this movement. You wind the movement, obviously you're going to see that power reserve go up. Putting it in the second position, now you're going to be able to adjust the GMT, and that means that is the local hour hand in one direction, and in the other direction it is the quick set for the date. So putting this back right there, you turn in the other direction and then the date changes very quickly. You also have the GMT hand, and that is sort of a ghost hand, and I believe you could make that a slave to the hour hand. If I am wrong, I will put that in the description below. You also have a 24-hour dial right there, obviously a GMT, so that is actually useful. Screwing in the crown is very nice, actually very smooth as well. You can tell that they've really taken very good care of machining this watch perfectly. Now, there are a few benefits to it being a micro-rotor movement. Obviously, one of those is thinness. You can see this is actually a pretty thin watch for 200 meters of water resistance. You have the H for Horage on the crown, and you can see from its profile, it's a true integrated bracelet watch. It's a little bit of a weird integration to the case, and I'll get back to that in just a minute, but the bracelet tapers a lot. It's a flat link, and you actually get the choice between polishing or brushing. Now, personally, I would definitely go with the brushing because this is a little bit of a fingerprint magnet. However, this is an integrated bracelet watch, so you may want it to be a little bit flashy, so I could see why you might want the polishing, but I would imagine that the brushing is going to be a little bit popular. Maybe I'm wrong. The clasp on this watch is phenomenal. Look at how thin the profile on this is. And I'll tell you why that's really important. This actually has micro adjust in this buckle. That thin buckle has on the fly micro adjust. So it is a 2-button deployant. Pop that open. Look how thin the scissor is. So that's the first thing that they did here. It's really nicely made. It does not feel cheap. It feels really nice and sturdy. And it's really easy to use. They don't put an obvious button to actually adjust it, but you just put your finger here and press, and it is a button, and it slides. And you could use your thumb to slide it in and out. You see that? Very different from any other micro adjusts that I've seen, and I think they designed this from the ground up. I think this is sort of their own design, and it works really well. Look at that. It is really easy to adjust this, easier than anything that I've ever used. It's probably in the same neighborhood as like Glide Lock or something like that. It's that good. So really, bravo on that. That is a really nice clasp. And I think these things are very important, especially if you're buying a luxury sort of sports watch like this. It's very, very important. Now, this is the black dial variant, and I do like the black and orange combination that they went with on this dial. I think it looks really good. The only thing I don't like about this design is the bezel. I was a little bit let down by the bezel in general. Number one, it is polished, so it's very hard for me to grip. But it's not only because it's polished, they made it a stepped bezel, and the stepped bezel looks good, but it is not functional. So when I actually try and grip it, it is a little bit difficult. And overall, the bezel action is good, but I wouldn't say it's great. There isn't much wiggle in it, but there is a little bit, which is kind of disappointing as well. Overall, I would have definitely wanted something a little bit more solid as a bezel and something a little bit more grippy, especially for someone with dry hands like myself. I think that would look or feel a little bit better. Also, I would like a little bit of contrast, or at least the option for that, because this is a stainless steel bezel. There's a stainless steel bezel insert, or it could be all one piece. It might be all one milled piece. I think that having a contrasting bezel, maybe in black, would be really beneficial to the visibility, number one, because it sort of washes out. And then, of course, giving you other options here, maybe a 12-hour bezel or a 24-hour bezel. Since this is a GMT, that would make sense as well. So I'm not sure if they're actually offering that. I don't believe they are, and that is unfortunate. One other thing that I find very, I guess, weird about this design is the integration into the case. So you have this little extra piece here, and it is all polished. I think what they wanted to do was make this easy to use with their rubber strap, and they did this. I don't know why. I just don't like the look of it. It doesn't look as good as I thought it would look. So those are really the only issues that I see with this watch. Other than that, the quality is there, and of course, there is the movement. So it has a bunch of different finishings on it, and you do have a micro-rotor. That micro-rotor, the one on here at least, I believe is the platinum, I believe. However, I could be wrong. They are offering a platinum rotor, and you could also get a tungsten rotor, and I believe that is plated in gold. And I believe the platinum rotor is in platinum, so there you go. I think this is a very good-looking watch. However, there is a lot of competition out there at the price that they are pricing this at now. Unfortunately, they have raised the price on this. This is COSC certified. You do get 200 meters of water resistance. It's also made out of 904L stainless steel. So there is a lot that go into this watch. If you get this with the tungsten rotor that is plated in gold, I think they are charging around 7,000 and change. So 7,100 and something like that. If you get it with the platinum rotor, they are charging $8,460. That is a lot of money for this watch. Now, I think the 7,000 and change is a lot of money as well. You're getting a really beautiful micro-rotor movement with 72 hours of power reserve. It gets a silicone hairspring. There's a lot of technology goes into this watch. There are a lot of watches out there in that $7,000 range that you can get that are GMTs, and you can get something pretty special from a mainstream watch company. That's all I'm saying. This is Christopher Ward. This is the 12 in titanium. Now, this is around a $2,000 watch. It is thinner than this Horage, and it's made out of titanium. Now, it is grade 2 titanium, so it does scratch very, very easy. However, this does get a textured dial. Now, if they ever made a GMT version of this watch, I'm not sure if they would do that in titanium or stainless steel. They probably can do it in either. It would be a little bit thicker. This is around 9 millimeters thick. I'm going to do measurements on the Horage very quickly just to show you, but this is a lot thinner than the Horage, and obviously that's because this is around 9 millimeters thick. This is, I believe, around 10 millimeters thick is what I remember the press release saying, somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah. 10.2 millimeters, which is excellent. And that's about the same thickness as the stainless steel version of the Christopher Ward. Now, that is kind of weird because this is a micro-rotor, and that is powered by a Sleet SW200, so something to keep in mind. And that one is around $1,000 or $1,200, so 39.5 millimeters, so around the same size as the Christopher Ward. You do have male end links on here, and they do protrude out. So measuring at that is around 50 and change. Measuring at the case itself is around 46.7 millimeters. You have a nice crown on here. It's not huge, but it's 6.2 millimeters. Works really well. And it does taper really well as well, the bracelet. I think it's around 24 millimeters, somewhere around there at the case, but it tapers down to like 18 millimeters or something like that. 15, so almost 16 millimeters. Really, really nice. I like that big taper. And like I said, at the case, around 22 millimeters, but I think at the lugs, it's around 23 or 24. So there you go. I'll do plenty of close-ups of the movement because the movement is really where it's at. So I'm gonna throw it on my wrist really quickly. I don't have this sized. This is going back very soon to the team over at Horage, and they were nice enough to lend me this. Look at that. It looks great on my wrist. This is a really, I think what they were trying to go for is like the perfect everyday watch, the perfect all-arounder, and they really got it right. I mean, if you want an integrated bracelet look, this sort of gives you that. At the same time, you could use it with straps that they obviously are offering. I'm not sure if you could use it with other bracelets or straps, excuse me. The only thing is I would like is a contrasting bezel, maybe a little bit grippier of a bezel as well. I keep on saying that, but I definitely mean that because I do like to have a grippy bezel. But there you go. Looks great on my 7.5 inch wrist. Decent job on the lume here. You can see that second hand is lumed. I thought it wasn't. That orange is lumed. So all the orange on the dial, even the 24-hour hand is lume. So the hands are pretty liberally applied with lume. And then of course the indices also applied with lume. And then you have a little triangle on the bezel. There's a little bit of lume in it. It gives you a little bit of orientation in the dark. Overall, very good lume, and it hangs on pretty well as well. Super Luminova, I believe, and it looks great. Well, there you go. I do think it lives up to my expectations. I really had high hopes for this watch, and I don't think that it let me down. There are a few things that I would change about the watch, particularly the bezel. I think the bezel looks good. However, my style is a little bit different. I would like a contrasting color. Also, it's not as grippy as I would like a bezel, and the action isn't all that great either. However, with that being said, the overall fit, finishing quality of this watch is really good. And of course, the bracelet is fantastic, and that micro adjust is amazing. The way it fits into the case, a little bit annoying. I don't really like the look of that. Again, that is more of a personal thing. I do think this is very expensive at that $7,000 range. There are tons of watches out there that you can get at around $7,000 that obviously will have very good specs. Maybe not as good as this watch, and definitely not with a micro-rotor, so definitely something to consider. If you like a micro-rotor and it's something you've always wanted, this is actually kind of affordable when compared to other watches with micro-rotors, so something to keep in mind. Anyway guys, tell me what you think down in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. What do you think of this watch? What do you think of Horage in general? What do you think of the price? $7,000 with a tungsten rotor and around $8,500 with a platinum rotor. Definitely not worth it. If you want that platinum rotor, you're not going to really see it very often, but that is really my opinion. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It's super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. I'll catch you guys in the next video.